Hi everybody. Chapter 13 was very long based on the milk carton, and really what it was Jenny realizing that she was kidnapped and then doing some research in the library and different news articles and stuff, because at the time that the story took place they didn't have computers to look that stuff up. Had computers but not the way to look it up. So now we're on to chapter 14. Here we go. So at the end of 13, she talked to her mom, was like, I'm sorry, I really am just running late to the library for my project. And then they were going to her dad's soccer game that he coaches. Okay. Her father's team won the soccer game. It was probably because you and Reeve screamed so loud, he said. That and running up and down the field to follow the action. He was so glad she attended his game that she was overwhelmed with guilt for not going before. He introduced his little players to her and then to Reeve, and the pride in his voice swamped her. What's for supper, said her father when they were all heading for the cars to go home. Is that always your primary concern, teased her mother. It sure is high on my list, he said. Not much but soccer and daughters come ahead of it. He kissed his wife on the mouth to show that she was also ahead of the food. He looked younger. The lines weren't as deep as last night. Actually, we're going out for pizza, said Janny's mother. Janny, Reeve, and Mr. Johnson raised eyebrows. Mrs. Johnson felt that fast foods divided the family. She served old-fashioned meals that always deserved the adjective solid. The pizza was an offering. See, Janny, we'll even get you the food you want, anything, just don't leave the way Hannah did. So in Janny's head, they're bribing her to stay. They offered me ice cream once, she thought, and I let them buy me off with that too. She did not know if she could even gag pizza down, but there was more to swallow than pepperoni and mushrooms. Her parents made it clear that it would be thoughtful of Reeve to go on home. He left reluctantly, and Mrs. Johnson agreed that Johnny could ride to school with him in the morning. The Johnsons drove to Pizza Hut, making silly conversation about soccer and Johnny's love life. When the waitress had brought a pitcher of Coke to the table and they were back from the salad bar, her mother said, I've arranged family counseling at the Adolescent Trauma Center. I won't go, said Janny immediately. I want to think things out for myself. She was already protecting herself from the penetrating eyes of friends and parents. Now that she had kept her lies going in front of psychiatrists she had to keep her lies going in front of psychiatrists who specialize in adolescent trauma. I don't want to go either, said her father. I hate talking about personal things to strangers. He shoved half the objects on the table to the far side. Salt, Parm cheese, sweet and low, as if pushing away the invasion of their privacy. Besides, added Janny, we're doing fine. A complete untruth. She would never again be honest with her mother and father. She would carry her milk carton around, photographed down. She would lie. She, who had never had secrets, would carry New Jersey around like a tray, spread out in front of her, invisible to all eyes but Reeve's. Janny stared at her father, trying to imagine him going to New Jersey to steal a child. With trembling hands, her mother distributed extra napkins. I think we could use the counseling. Her husband and daughter looked away. We'll all go, whispered her mother. The whisper gave an intensity to the simple words. She sounds as if she's praying, thought Janny. She must have prayed for Hannah. And a memory surfaced. Janny tried to stomp on it. Her feet actually moved, kicking away the memory. The memory came anyhow. Not a daymare, more like a soundtrack. She, who lived in a household without religion, knew a prayer. Bless this food, bless this house. May all my brood be quiet as a mouse. We recited that at dinner. There were so many of us, and we made such a racket. He wanted us to be quiet for just a little while. He, my real father? No. I want to be Janny Johnson, not Jenny Spring. Go away, drop dead, leave me alone. Janny, what are you thinking about, said her mother. She surfaced from New Jersey, so out of that. It was like swimming underwater, having to shake your head before you could see again. Oh, nothing, she said. The brightness in her voice was so false, even the waitress paused and took notice. Now they're home. Janny tried to do homework. It was impossible. She walked around her room, touching, wishing. On top of a stack of papers lay a small, square spiral notebook with a silver glitter cover and silver-rimmed pages. Every September, Janny started the new school year by buying an assortment of pretty notebooks from various gift shops. She always intended to write assignments in one, keep a diary in another, copy interesting poems or phrases on a third, and so forth. She rarely made more than a page of entries before the assignment notebook was misplaced or the diary became dull. She opened the silver notebook. Only 2 pages had been touched. Janny ripped them out and flipped to the middle, where it looked safe. She began to draft a letter to help her think about the unthinkable. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Spring. So she's writing to her real parents. chocolates. Ooh. In the school cafeteria, I took my friend's milk carton, and on it was a photograph of your little girl who was stolen from a shopping center in New Jersey all of those years ago. It was me. I recognized myself, but I know it could not be true because I have a wonderful mother and father already and a wonderful life, and I've always been very happy, so I could not have been kidnapped. It really wasn't me. She was too tired to write. Her hand shook, and the 6 sides of the pencil hurt her fingers. And that's when you know you're weak, she thought, when pencil surfaces wound you. She closed the notebook and put it under the clip of her 3-ring notebook along with the milk carton. In the morning, she fell asleep during math. During English, when Mr. Brylow was discussing modern European literature, boring, she opened her silver glitter notebook and wrote, "Every time I look on that carton, I have another memory of a kitchen and spilled milk, high chairs, a dog named Honey, a table blessing about mice. And there's the dress in the attic. Tomorrow when my mother's out of the house, I'm going to get it out and iron it. I'll hang it in the back of my closet where I can see it." Mr. Brylow said, "Janny?" She looked up, startled and unfocused. Everybody else is left for lunch, Janny." The room was entirely empty. Mr. Brylow said, "Janny, is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you'd like to share with me?" She shook her head. The classroom door seemed terribly far away, hard to find, and lunch, even though Reeve would be there, hardly seemed worth the effort it would take to reach the cafeteria. She got halfway there and had to finish her thoughts. She had to write. It was like a druggie stabbing his vein. She stopped right in the hall, holding the silver notebook against the wall for her desk and writing vertically. It's back to the letter again, to Mr. and Mrs. Spring. "You must promise not to go to the police or even get mad at my parents because they are my parents. They are my mother and father. I love them. The most terrible thing about this is that I forgot you, and I'm very sorry. I don't know how or why I could have, but until I saw that photograph of me on the milk carton, I never thought of you. You can stop worrying. I'm all right. I have always been all right. But the thing is, I have not told my parents. I don't know how to tell them that they were part of kidnapping me. I haven't decided yet whether I want to meet you. And I know that sounds awful, but I have a family and I love them and I don't know you." It does sound pretty mean. 3 times a week after history, she had typing. They were learning to do envelopes. And since she had to use envelopes anyhow, the class was doing a mailing for students against drunk driving, and Janny had 25 to address. The class was filled with the clicking of keyboards, the moans of students making errors, and the continuous demand for replacement envelopes when somebody goofed up too much to use the old one. Everybody wanted to be using the computers instead of the typewriters because you could correct the errors so much more easily. The afternoon sun came strong and golden through the windows. Both students and teacher were half asleep. Janny's own mistakes had nothing to do with the heat of the sun. She kept putting her own return address on the envelope instead of the school's. But the envelopes were still perfectly useful, so she stuck them under the clipboard in her blue cloth notebook. And for the 100th time, she checked both sides of her milk carton, and it was still her. "I'm like a toddler with my blanket," thought Janny. "I can't get very far from the carton. Pretty soon I'll be sucking my thumb again." After school, Reeve caught her so she couldn't take off to the library. "Or points unknown," he said, "or Sarah Charlotte's." In the Jeep, they went to the scenic overlook and watched the couples for whom it was sexual overlook. "I can't," said Janny miserably. "No matter what is happening, my mind slides around to New Jersey." "I wish I could say the same," Reeve said. "No matter what's happening, my mind slides around to you. It's consuming my whole life. I don't even have a life except thinking about you." She was sure he meant thinking about Janny or thinking about sex with Janny. They kissed each other, but Janny turned away almost before it began, and his lips brushed her disappearing cheek instead, and he said, "You're losing weight, aren't you? I'm too nervous to eat. Tell me." "Reeve, I want them not to exist. New Jersey, I mean. I don't want them to be down there, waiting. I feel as if they're going to pop up somehow and leap into my life, and I won't have any other choice. I want my parents, not them." He nodded. His cheek brushed against hers, and it was a sensation she had never had before, an unshaven cheek. "Besides," she whispered, "it makes me realize what a horrible little girl I was. Reeve, I'm so afraid to find out what happened. What if I gave up those brothers and sisters and the father who shouted blessings for an ice cream sundae?" He said, "I suppose you did, Janny. Maybe it was pretty neat to be the center of attention. Driving fast and laughing and singing and having ice cream and new parents and new clothes and a new bedroom." "I would have been 3.5, cried Janny. "Kids that old know how to use the telephone. They have their phone numbers memorized. Would it have occurred to you to call up New Jersey? You wouldn't have felt kidnapped. You were having lots of fun. When they said, pretend you're our little girl, gosh, Janny, you'd be great at that. You'd always have some fantasy running in your head, like the whole denim and lace thing. I never told you about denim and lace, she said, embarrassed. Nope, but Sarah Charlotte did. You talked about me last year to Sarah Charlotte? Yeah. Now do you feel like kissing me? She did, they did, and it was good. I love you, Reeve, she said. How easily it came out and how true it was. Oh, she's in love. Maybe they were mean to you in New Jersey, suggested Reeve. No, said Janny. I can remember that much. Nobody was ever mean, you know. In a way, I'd like to go to that adolescent trauma thing and ask a doctor about memory loss. How come I don't remember? And Reeve said, I suppose you needed to remember. I don't suppose you needed to remember before. Everything was fine. If you hadn't seen the milk carton, it would still be fine. I hate that dairy. I'm never drinking flour dairy milk again. Good, because you have a milk allergy. They leaned on each other, snuggling for the best fit, and Janny thought that nothing could be nicer than getting comfortable on Reeve's chest. She was aware of his scents, Reeve himself, the faint soapiness of his shirt, a slight perfume from his shampoo. If it hadn't happened, she thought, I would not be me. I would be somebody else entirely. It horrified her that she had once daydreamed of being somebody other than Janny Johnson. Jane, J-A-Y-Y-N-E Johnstone, indeed. How precious her name and address seemed now. Reeve had supper with the Johnsons. Nobody discussed Hannah or grandparents or the skip day of school, and after dessert, Reeve had Janny all on his own, and Janny's mother did not seem to see how little Janny ate. They studied together, and Reeve was down in 3 minutes and wanted to know what he was supposed to do for the next 2 hours. That night, along with checking her milk carton, she checked the envelope where her real address was so professionally typed. It seemed to her that they might offset each other, the carton and this envelope. And that is the end of chapter 14. And I hope you have a great night. Bye.